Hello, my name is Rusty King, and I'm an Assistant Special Agent in charge with the North Carolina Alcohol Law Enforcement Division. At this time, I'd like to welcome you to the North Carolina Alcohol Law Enforcement Division's Be a Responsible Seller Server training as it pertains to the COVID-19 Executive Order instructions. During the course of this training, we will discuss how the Governor's executive orders, specifically Executive Order 181, affects permitted establishments throughout the state. At the conclusion of today's training, I'll provide you some contact information so that any questions which arise during the course of the training may most effectively be delivered to the applicable ALE district office. During the course of today's training, we'll be discussing the following topics: defining the parameters of Executive Order 181 as it pertains to Phase 3, applying Executive Order 181 to locations holding ABC permits in the state, specifically locations holding on-premise ABC permits, discussing the procedures for establishing temporary extensions to the ABC licensed premises, and best practices for the responsible sale and service of alcoholic beverages during COVID-19. During this phase of the reopening plan, off-premise locations such as grocery stores and convenience stores will continue to operate as set forth in previous executive orders. Bars and restaurants will likewise continue to operate as set forth in previous executive orders under the following guidelines: reduced capacity, which will be discussed in greater detail later on in the training. Face coverings for employees must be worn at all times while inside the business and in exterior dining areas when they are or may be within 6 feet of a patron. Patrons shall wear face coverings at all times unless they are actively eating or drinking. Provisions of the new executive order, which have changed regarding times for on-site sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages, are discussed on the following slide. New guidelines set forth by Executive Order 181 specifically restrict on-site sale and consumption of alcoholic beverages in the following ways and go in effect at 5 p.m. on Friday, December 11th, 2020, and last until 5 p.m. on Friday, January the 8th, 2021, or until modified by the Governor. All sales of alcoholic beverages for on-site consumption must cease between the hours of 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. All on-site consumption of alcoholic beverages must cease between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. Nothing in this order prohibits a location from remaining open for to-go or pickup sales. Additional guidelines set forth by Executive Order 181 establish a modified stay-at-home order. This affects bars, restaurants, breweries, distilleries, and wineries in the following ways. All bars, restaurants, breweries, distilleries, and wineries must close to the public from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. Restaurants, distilleries, breweries, and wineries may remain open for pickup or delivery only as long as patrons do not remain on the premises. Patrons may enter locations to pick up orders but must wear a face covering and leave after completing their transactions. Restaurants should stop taking food orders to be consumed on site in time to allow for the business to be closed to the public by the designated time. In other words, all patrons consuming products on site should be off the premises by 10 p.m. Guidelines set regarding the modified stay-at-home order continued. Employees may remain on premises at the business to conduct necessary operations. During that time, businesses must still adhere to the applicable public health restrictions in the order, including the face coverings requirement. Under the Phase 3 guidelines, as previously set forth by Executive Order 169, certain businesses may open for on-premise consumption of alcoholic beverages in outdoor areas only. This provision applies to bars, lounges in which tobacco or related products are consumed on premises, auditoriums, amphitheaters, nightclubs, music halls, and adult entertainment facilities. Of special note that guests must be seated at the time of the consumption. Bars not using waitstaff must designate an ordering area at the bar. This area must allow each guest to wait 6 feet apart from other guests. If necessary, guests may place their orders by coming inside the bar's building. However, guests must consume their beverages in outdoor seating areas only. All guests inside and those outside when they are within 6 feet of another patron must wear face coverings unless actively eating or drinking. Locations utilizing outdoor seating areas must adhere to the following guidelines. The occupancy of the outdoor seating area shall not exceed 30% of the stated seating occupancy. If such an area does not have a stated seating occupancy, the occupancy shall not exceed 7 patrons for every 1,000 square foot of occupancy. An example of a location that does not have a stated seating occupancy by the fire code would be an establishment which secures a temporary extension of their ABC permitted establishment. Procedures for temporary extensions to the ABC permitted premises will be discussed in subsequent slides. Locations which have amenities such as pool or billiard tables shall not allow patrons to utilize such amenities inside the establishment. As previously laid out in Executive Order 141, the ABC Commission has provided updated guidance to temporarily allow on-premise ABC permit holders to include additional outdoor seating as part of their licensed premises in compliance with the following guidelines. Unlike prior to the state of emergency, a permit holder need not make application for a temporary extension of their premises to the ABC Commission. The temporary extension must be approved by the appropriate local government entity. If the extension is not covered by a deed or lease, the permittee must obtain written permission of the owner of that property. Temporary extensions to premises continued. The permittee must notify their ALE agent, the ALE district office, or local law enforcement of the temporary extension of premises prior to use of the extended area. This includes those who will be temporarily extending their premises onto their own property, such as in a yard or parking lot adjacent to that property. A diagram of the temporary extension must be maintained on the permitted premises, indicating the size and location of the temporary extension, the types of barriers to be used, and how many tables and chairs will be placed in the temporary area. Temporary extensions to premises continued. The extension of premises must be adjacent to, abutting, and connected to the primary licensed premises. One of the exterior walls of the licensed premises must be part of the extended area. Any temporary extension must comply with ADA accessibility requirements. The temporary area must be visibly and vertically marked off so that the average citizen can distinguish between the extended licensed premises and the public walkway. Temporary extensions to premises concluded. Consumers will not be allowed to take open containers of alcoholic beverages out of the temporary extension of premises area. The temporary extension does not increase an establishment's maximum occupancy as previously established by the fire code. As with previous executive orders, compliance with Executive Order 169 is mandatory. ALE's position is to educate first to encourage voluntary compliance with the executive order. ALE is available to answer questions and support local law enforcement in this effort. Non-compliance with the executive order is a Class 2 misdemeanor. During this training, we'd like to take the opportunity to review some basic concepts. Acceptable forms of identification. It shall be the duty of the permittee and his or her employees to determine the age of any person purchasing, consuming, or possessing alcoholic beverages on the licensed premises. Acceptable identifications for purposes of determining age shall be a valid driver's license, a valid special identification card issued by the North Carolina Division of Motor Vehicles, a military ID card, or a passport. As face coverings continue to be mandatory during the state of emergency, I'd like to take the opportunity to review some best practices for checking identifications during COVID-19. Purchasing age-restricted products in North Carolina is not a right, it's a privilege. Retailers are not required to sell these products. North Carolina General Statute 18B 305 protects retailers if they choose not to sell such products for legitimate reasons. You cannot base a refusal solely on a patron's race, religion, color, national origin, sex, or disability. If you are unable to determine the age of a patron wearing a mask, it is recommended you ask them to take 2 steps back and remove or lower the mask. If they refuse, you may and should refuse the sale. Continuing to review some basic concepts. Alcohol and intoxicated individuals, criminal matters. North Carolina General Statute 18B 305 states it is unlawful for any person to knowingly sell or give an alcoholic beverage to an intoxicated individual, or for an individual to knowingly buy alcohol for a person who has been refused the right to purchase such beverage. A person charged with selling alcohol to an intoxicated individual is subject to a $100 fine plus $180 cost of court. This does not include any attorney fees. More and more, district attorneys have taken an aggressive stance in cases of providing alcohol to intoxicated and/or underage individuals when it results in serious injury or death. In certain cases, individuals have been charged with homicide or manslaughter-related charges. Alcohol and intoxicated individuals, civil matters. North Carolina ABC Commission, no permittee or his employee shall knowingly sell alcoholic beverages to or allow consumption by an intoxicated individual. Violations of North Carolina ABC Commission regulations, as well as criminal statutes, are reported to the North Carolina ABC Commission. These violations put the business's ABC permits at risk via fine, suspension, or possible revocation. These violations also make both the business and the individual employee subject to civil suit. Under North Carolina law, an individual may be sued for up to $500,000 per occurrence for negligently supplying alcohol. While alcohol affects everybody differently, and an intoxicated subject may display one or more of the following characteristics, it falls upon the employee to determine whether or not to sell the alcoholic beverages to that individual. Signs of intoxication may be but are not limited to swaying or staggering, stumbling or bumping into things, leaning on objects for support, red glassy eyes, slurred speech, annoying other customers, difficulty handling money, overlooking identification in a wallet. The North Carolina Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission is also available when applying the governor's executive orders to permitted establishments. The North Carolina ABC Commission typically holds their commission meetings on the second Wednesday of the month at 10 a.m. More information can be found at abc.nc.gov or by calling 919-779-0700. This concludes the North Carolina Alcohol Law Enforcement Division's Be a Responsible Seller-Server training as it pertains to Phase 3 of the Governor's reopening plan. We hope it's provided you some useful information. When contacting us with questions that may have arisen during the course of the training, please use the following information. The preferred method would be to email us at alehq.headquarters@ncdps.gov. When emailing us with questions, the above address, please include the county within which the business is located. Should you not have the availability of a computer, you may call our headquarters at 919-733-4060. Thank you for your attention.